This is Max. Max is one of the over 6 million companion animals in shelters in the United States every single year. And Max is not alone. Every day, our social media and news feeds are filled with videos of dogs like Max, cats, or other animals filling our overcrowded animal shelters. How did we get here? And more importantly, how do we need to step up and change it for the better? In our third episode of Changemaker Cafe Animal Rescue series, we'll take a look at what is happening in animal shelters across the country, understand how shelters operate and the challenges they're facing, and examine a few opportunities to address this issue shared by the experts who are doing this work every day. Miss our other episodes? Check out our channel for the rest, and of course, other topics. As always, you can download the series action guide for resources and tips to tackle these issues in your community, whether you're aiming to start a nonprofit or socially conscious business, serve as a volunteer or board member, raise funds or awareness, and more at changemakercafe.com. Thank you, as always, to Click and Pledge for sponsoring this series. Ready? Let's get curious. Warning, watching Changemaker Cafe may lead to side effects such as caring a lot, an insatiable desire to help others, growing your skills to change the world, or becoming a leader in your community. For best results, use an open mind and share with all your friends. Many animal shelters have been at or over capacity for a long time, but things have been getting worse in the last few years. According to Shelter Animals Count, a resource for animal shelter statistics supporting rescue efforts, the U.S. animal shelter population grew by 250,000 in 2023. In 2024, Shelter Animals Count also shared that animals were staying in shelters longer, meaning that they were not finding homes as quickly as past years. So what does this mean? Well, when you combine more animals in shelters with longer stays for animals, you get severely overcrowded shelter spaces. Shelters across the country are reporting overcrowding at record levels. When shelters are at or over capacity, it has some pretty severe consequences. First, no more kennel spaces mean shelters have to choose between declining intakes for more animals or having to double up or find unconventional living spaces, which can create a lot of stress for these animals. Take the story of Kane, for example, a 7-year-old pup who had to sleep in a shelter worker's office when no more kennel spots were available. It's important to note that choosing to decline intakes is only an option for shelters who do not have what's called an open admission policy, which requires shelters to take in any animal that comes to their doors, regardless of age, breed, or condition. Another consequence of overcrowding, staff at shelters are spread incredibly thin, leading to burnout and low retention rates, which can have a major ripple effect on a shelter's operations. We'll talk more about this issue in a future video in this series. And finally, while nearly 2/3 of shelters in the U.S. operate as no-kill shelters, according to Best Friends Animal Society, some shelters at or over capacity still face heartbreaking decisions about euthanasia, a decision shelter workers avoid at all costs. This is something pet owners might not be aware of when they surrender their pet. Animal rescue experts attribute the increase to a handful of factors, with the most prominent one being, unsurprisingly, economic challenges faced by humans in recent years. Let's recap what happens to animals when they enter a shelter. Of the estimated 70 million homeless pets in the U.S., about 10%, over 6 million, wind up in one of the nation's shelters. Of those that make it to a shelter in a given year, 2/3 are adopted and 13% are lost pets returned to their owners, accounting for roughly 3/4 of shelter animals. But about 13% of dogs and 17% of cats are euthanized each year, according to the ASPCA. Others may be long-term residents or pets who are returned after adoption. To combat shelter overcrowding, communities need to do 3 things. 1, slow down the number of new animals coming into shelters. 2, increase funding and capacity for shelters and supporting rescue groups to house more animals. And 3, increase the number of people adopting or even fostering pets to make more space. Let's break down each of these strategies. And while we do, I'm curious, which of these strategies do you think could make the biggest impact? Share your thoughts in the comments. Okay, so strategy number 1, slow down the number of new animals coming into the shelters. Since we know pet overpopulation is a major contributor, slowing down the number of animals who require shelter support comes down to preventing unwanted reproduction and helping struggling pet owners keep their pets. Okay, so first, experts say preventing animal reproduction in situations where people won't be responsible for ensuring an animal's long-term well-being and housing is critical. These situations can include everything from failing to spay or neuter pets or practices like backyard breeding or puppy mills, where animals, especially dogs, are bred and sold for profit, and breeders are often not held to standards for providing safe, clean spaces, medical care, or other needs. Secondly, experts agree we need to ensure as many people as possible have the material resources needed to keep their pets, since economic challenges are cited as a major reason for pet returns or abandonment.
So many people come to us each day struggling with financial resources. They can't afford the medical care that maybe their beloved pet needs and still put food on the table, still pay their rent, or they have to find new housing and they need to be able to pay a security deposit to keep a pet in the home. Well, the fact that you need an extra security deposit for a pet is kind of crazy anyway, but what can we do to help them not have to surrender a pet that they love? That pet's already got an owner. It's already got somebody that loves them. And when we talked earlier about the amount of how expensive it is to get an animal ready for adoption and to house an animal, $30 per day. If we can help keep that pet in the home and provide them with maybe a little bit of financial support to do that, that's kind of a win-win for us. It's helping to find that great home for a pet, somebody that loves it, that's going to care for it, and helping us to have additional resources to help other animals and that space that we need, that we've got lines and lines of animals waiting to come in.
All right, so strategy number 2 is increasing the capacity of shelters and supporting rescue groups so that they can manage more animals. An ecosystem of shelters, rescue groups, and other support organizations coordinate to do their best to find spaces for homeless companion animals. But with the level of overpopulation and surrendering that communities are facing, they still don't have enough bandwidth to meet the need. Within this ecosystem, we have government-led animal shelters like your county animal care facility, funded by municipal budgets with some ability to accept public donations. Then you've got your nonprofit-led animal shelters who rely on public donations and may or may not have government grants or contracts. Then you've got animal foster rescues who focus on housing pets temporarily in staff's or volunteers' homes versus a shelter facility. And then you have sanctuaries who focus on providing homes to animals for the remainder of their lives. A lack of staffing, resources, and sometimes actual space are major reasons that many of these groups struggle to house or care for more animals. So increasing funding for these groups can help them expand their space and materials and staffing to care for these animals. Community changemakers like you might be able to help by leading fundraising campaigns, supply drives, or volunteer recruitment efforts for these groups, or even advocating to local government leaders to increase funding for your municipal animal shelter. We'll talk through some tips on fundraising for animal rescue work later on in this series. Okay, so strategy number 3, increase the number of people adopting or even fostering pets. Getting more pets out of the shelters is our third approach. But a number of factors stand in the way of getting more pets adopted. One is a lack of accessibility or awareness about pets who need homes. Perceptions about adopting from shelters or about certain breeds is another factor. Restrictions in some type of housing or residential spaces is another. Financial constraints for would-be pet owners. is another, and in some cases, restrictive adoption practices. When thinking of adoption practices, you might be wondering, okay, so if shelters are so overcrowded, why charge adoption fees at all? In many cases, shelter and rescue groups are doing their best to keep fees low, or even sometimes erasing fees to help get more animals out of there. But you might be surprised just how important adoption fees are to keeping these efforts going. Shelters and rescue groups charge adoption fees for two main reasons. The first is they need the funding. There's simply a cost incurred by shelters to not only house pets while they are waiting for adoption, but also to get them ready for adoption. And sometimes donations just aren't enough money to cover these costs.
But we want people to understand that even though our adoption prices are really low, there's still a cost to doing these things. And so every time of adoption, we'll say, this is, our adoptions are, like $150 or $125 or $75 for cats. But it's cost us $340 to get them up and ready. So it's, are you able to make a donation to help us feel so much?
I once had someone comment on my YouTube channel. I did a video about another animal rescue in my city. Why does the nonprofit shelter or rescue group have a higher adoption fee than the county and city one? And my guess was that, well, the city or county one has taxes to supplement the funding, and you all don't, and you rely on private donations. So, and there's always a cost to caring for the animals.
Yeah, we don't get.
Glad I answered that correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't get any government funding at all. So
None at all.
None at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they do partner with us a little bit we do some of their spay-neuter services, and they pay us to do their spay-neuter services. But for the animals that we pull directly from them that need all the spay-neuter and all the vaccines, maybe need even a broken leg fixed or an eye enucleated or some sort of a medical procedure, we don't get paid for any of that. We have to pay our staff to do all of those things. And so Michael and his team are out raising funds to make sure that we have enough to cover all of that. And we want to keep the adoption prices as low as we possibly can. And that's why we need philanthropic dollars to help us bridge that gap.
The second reason for adoption fees is that fees can be part of the screening process for new adopters. Animal shelters and foster groups want to make sure that when they send an animal home, it has the best chance of surviving and thriving. That's why some groups put in practices like applications, background checks, or other forms of screening. Sometimes giving pets away for free, especially in public settings like Facebook Marketplace or other online marketplaces or parking lots, may attract individuals who don't have good intentions, such as animal abusers or individuals using animals for dog fighting, or people who plan to resell animals for a profit afterward. These motives can raise major questions about whether the animal will be properly cared for. So beyond shelters, free pets may also sometimes be a sign that they come from backyard breeders or hoarders trying to offload animals quickly after they've been subjected to neglect or poor conditions. Okay, so you've heard about the barriers and strategies to tackling overcrowding in shelters. It's time to weigh in. It's time for this episode's Changemaker Challenge, where we take a moment to reflect on what we're learning and brainstorm ways to make an impact. Okay, so here's how you participate. You're going to jump down into the comments, you're going to brainstorm, and you're going to share your thoughts on a few ways that you might use your unique skills to address shelter overcrowding, whether it's helping prevent more pets from entering shelters in the first place, bringing more resources to the shelters, or advocating for increased shelter funding, or other ways to make an impact. Think of as many ideas as you can and drop those into the comments. In our next video, in our animal rescue series, we'll examine the connection between human poverty and pet poverty, and how financial and economic factors can impact society's ability to address these challenges for animal rescue efforts. Before we wrap up today, I want to give a sincere thank you to our sponsor making this series possible, Click and Pledge. Click and Pledge is a comprehensive fundraising platform for nonprofits ready to raise money and grow. Their robust fundraising features include donation forms, in-person fundraising, text to give, peer-to-peer fundraising that allows supporters to form teams and raise money in their networks, video fundraising with donation links embedded directly in your videos, donor outreach tools to improve donor retention, a complete Salesforce integration, and more. All right, so some platforms charge more based on your organization's size, but not Click and Pledge. So that's where the pricing is going to stay the same, even as your donor list increases. There are no contracts, and all of their solutions are included at no extra cost. Learn more about Click and Pledge's fundraising solutions and get your first month free using the links below this video. You can get in contact with their team if you have questions or schedule a demo or sign up to give it a try right now if you're ready. You can find the links for both of those options below the video. I'll see you for the next episode of Changemaker Cafe.